The Employees Provident Fund recorded a gross investment income of 17.33 billion for the third quarter of this year, up 14.6% from the 15.12 billion reported in the second quarter. In a statement, the EPF said equities contributed 7.29 billion to its total gross investment income, while fixed income instruments contributed 8.18 billion. Real estate and infrastructure and money market instruments made up the rest. Net investment income after accounting for impairment and cost write-down for listed equities stood at 16.87 billion ringgit. CEO Tunku Ali Zakri alias says this year has seen great volatility in the financial markets that resulted in very rapid movements from one extreme to the other, exacerbated by the uncertainties of the COVID-19 pandemic and continued fragile consumer sentiments. The fund says the widespread drop in yields provided opportunities for EPF to increase its trading activities and capitalize gains, but it remains cautious of lower reinvestment yield and in ensuring the long-term health of its overall portfolio is not jeopardized. As at end September, its investment assets stood at 941.77 billion, of which 68% was allocated to the domestic market, while 32% was allocated to the overseas market, which contributed 45% to gross investment income for the quarter. Ali Zakri says although the EPF remains guided by its strategic asset allocation strategy, much really depends on rapid and effective responses to the COVID-19 pandemic that must address the massive impact to the economy and ensuring the continuity of businesses, jobs and lives. Pemodalan Nasional Berhad has announced a total distribution of 4.25 sen per unit for Amanah Saham Bumi Putra unit holders for the year ending December 31st, 2020. This comprises a 3.5 sen distribution and a 0.75 sen bonus. In addition, in conjunction with ASB's 30th anniversary, unit holders will also receive a special one-off Ehsan payment of 0.75 sen per unit for up to the first 30,000 units. The income distribution for the year is lower than last year's total distribution of 5.5 sen per unit and also the lowest in ASB's 30-year history. The total payout for this year will be 7.6 billion ringgit. Meanwhile, Amanah Saham Nasional Berhad announced an income distribution payout of 2.02 sen per unit, or a total payout of 36.6 million for its variable price fund, Amanah Saham Nasional. This reflects a dividend yield of 3.18% based on the expected net asset value of the fund as at December 31st, 2020. PNB Chairman Tan Sri Dr. Zeti Alta Aziz says 2020 has been one of the most difficult years confronting the world, faced with a health, economic and humanitarian crisis at the same time. Still, as she points out, ASB's performance remains competitive relative to other low-risk investment instruments thanks to its portfolio diversification strategy. FGV Holdings was Bursa Malaysia's third most actively traded stock today, closing 7.6% or 9 sen up at RM1.27 with over 209 million shares traded. This comes after FGV said yesterday that it had received an unconditional mandatory takeover offer notice at RM1.30 from the Federal Land Development Authority. Felda intends to delist FGV from the bourse. Felda's takeover offer for FGV became unconditional after the collective FGV shareholding of Felda and persons acting in concert with it rose above 50%. At the offer price, FGV is valued at some 4.75 billion ringgit based on its issued share capital of about 3.65 billion. Analysts are largely of the view that Felda's offer price is fair given how the Plantation Group's shares have performed over the past year. CGS CIMB Head of Research Ivy Ng said the offer price should not be compared against FGV's IPO price of RM4.55 as the planter had a different structure and that market conditions were different then. Analysts also note that uncertainty remains surrounding FGV, particularly its land lease agreement with Felda, where issues could arise over the termination terms of the contract. Ng advises minority shareholders to consider accepting the offer and reinvest in companies with higher potential return. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin launched the National Tourism Policy 2020 to 2030 today to revive a tourism industry hobbled by the COVID-19 pandemic. Closed borders and movement restrictions have hurt the sector, which contributed 240.2 billion or 15.9% of gross domestic product last year. This year, Muhyiddin said the industry is looking at an estimated total loss of over 100 billion ringgit. According to the PM, the new policy will strengthen competitiveness, encourage sustainable and inclusive tourism sector development, and plan for future disasters. The government will focus on intensifying the digitization of the tourism sector and encourage technology-based tourism investment via the creation of special tourism investment zones. Putrajaya also aims to brand Malaysia as the top-of-mind ecotourism destination of the world, he said, pledging his commitment to balancing the development, preservation and conservation of national treasures, including the environment, culture and heritage. According to the National Economic Action Plan, Malaysia would need at least 4 years to revive the tourism industry. Top Glove Corp, the company at the centre of Malaysia's biggest COVID-19 cluster, says it will no longer terminate whistleblowers after it fired a worker for raising concerns about the lack of social distancing at its factories. Reuters reported last week that 27-year-old Nepali worker Yubaraj Khatka lost his job after sharing photos with a worker rights activist in May of fellow employees crowding into a Top Glove factory. Managing Director Datuk Lee Kim Miao said in a radio interview with BFM that if the incident were to have happened today, the sacking would not take place. He said the group has engaged consultants and they have guided Top Glove on what is the right thing to do. He added that the glove maker has also established 3 helplines for worker complaints, 1 internal and 2 overseen by a consultant and an audit firm. Lee also said that Khatka had admitted his intention was to pass the photo to someone so that basically that someone will use it to discredit Top Glove. Top Glove has reported over 5,000 positive cases among its employees, and its 28 factories in Meru Klang will remain shuttered for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Last week, it reported the death of 1 worker from the virus.